So we're on the last line of Mem Beis Amid Beis. The Mishnah had brought a member of Shmuel that said, "Hashutim machzikin zel zeh, me'idin zel zeh, v'nas m'sher misacha zel zeh." So the Gemara first goes back to what he had said, "Me'idin zel zeh." We have two shutfin who own property together. One shutf can testify on behalf of the other on behalf of the other shutf. Back to Gemara, Amai, Negayim Medusa name. If we're talking about let's say we're talking about a car that they own b'shutfus, and he says, and Reuven and Shimon are the partners, or let's say it's a piece of land, and then the Reuven and Shimon are the partners. Even if let's say they've split up the land, and they said that Reuven gets to use it for this year, and Shimon gets it next year. How could Shimon be made that the land belongs to Reuven? He's benefiting himself because next year he's going to benefit. He's going to use the land. Rashi says, I mean, it's not obviously. We'll see that that's not the case, but this is the assumption. Rashbam, sorry, Negei Medusinhein, Chos Mashal Cholkul Gamri. As long as they haven't split up the karka, Mito Shum Ar Klum in Asada. If anyone takes part of the sada, you have to do shteim. They're both going to lose. When him to the atzma made, he's being made on himself. The cost of dinut varm ainly al sadazu. We're talking about where Reuven's the one who's trying to come say this, says, I'm masalik myself. I have nothing to do with this. It fully belongs to, he says, I have nothing to do with this karka, and therefore it belongs to Shimon. Reuven's not involved, so therefore you can say, hey, this, that it belongs to Shimon. So because of Mehavi, does such a lashon of saying dinut varm ainly besadazu work? V'atanya. We had this back in Subas and in Gittin. We've had this a number of times. I have nothing to do with this sada, and I have no involvement in it, and I'm removing my hand from it. That has not helped to transfer the property from one to another. In order for a property to be transferred, a person could be mafker something, and then someone else could be zeichen it, but that's not what he did. He said, I'm being masalik yadi in favor of you, but he doesn't say that I'm giving it to you. He just says, I'm taking my hand off of it. That's not, that doesn't work. I seem to remember in Gittin that there was discussion as maybe it should be hefker, but he didn't do hefker. He said, he just made a declaratory statement that I have nothing to do with it. But he wasn't mafkid. He didn't give it to hefker. He just said, I'm not. He said it as if it's a fait accompli, although he hasn't done anything. So again, how is this shutef? How is Reuven able to testify on behalf of Shimon when he said, mainly? That's not enough. So we're talking about where Reuven was makna his share to Shimon. So he really got himself out of the property. So Gemara, even so, you still have a problem with Reuven being made on behalf of Shimon, even after he's totally been makna his share to Shimon. He is still benefiting himself in that if there's a Baal Chayiv of Reuven's who will come back, Reuven has no money. And he had previously borrowed money from Levi. And now he got this, afterwards he got this property that he gave to, or he had the property before, but he gave it his share to his shutaf Shimon. Levi will come and take the property away from Shimon. And if Shimon were to lose the property, well, we're talking about Reuven testifying on behalf of Shimon that the property is Shimon's as opposed to, let's say, Yehuda. Yehuda's coming and arguing for it. If Reuven is successful in defending the property that it still belongs to Shimon, that enables Levi, the person who he owes money to, from going. If it were to go away, if it were to go to Yehuda, then Shimon wouldn't be able, then Levi wouldn't be able to take it from Shimon. But by keeping it in Shimon's hands, he makes Levi, his creditor, able to take the property from Shimon, and that avoids Reuven becoming someone who doesn't repay his debts. The Amar Ravin Bar Shmuel, Mishmei Shmuel, Hamoicha Sadal Chaberu Shaloi B'Achrayis. If someone sells a sada to his friend, Shaloi B'Achrayis, or he doesn't take responsibility for where he's going to have to compensate if the property is taken away from the person who he sold it to, Ein Meid Loyala. He can't say Edis to keep it by the purchaser, because again, it's going to keep it that if the seller has a Baal Chayiv, that Baal Chayiv can take it from the purchaser. Now, but on the we say specifically here, it's talking about Shaloi B'Achrayis. Normally, karka is sold B'Achrayis. Normally, there is a warranty. So, if that were the case, it wouldn't be really any advantage to Ruvain, to the seller, in making sure that it stays by Shimon, because Memanav Shah. In any case, if Ruvain, if the Yehuda, if Levi, Ruvain's creditor comes and takes it from Shimon, now Ruvain owes Shimon money. He still doesn't have money. He's still not going to be able to pay him back. So he doesn't benefit in that case. Yeah. So we're talking about, so we say our case of the Shutfin is talking about where Ruvain was maknet to Shimon, and in addition to he was being maknet to his partner, the karka, he also took a achrayis that if it will be taken away from Shimon, he's going to pay him back. Yeah. It's an unusual achrayis. Usually achrayis is in a sale. This is like on a gift. When do you ever have a gift that has an achrayis? Yeah. Zaktamar, achrayis the man. What kind of achrayis are we talking about? Inema achrayis the almo. If he says, I'm going to pay back that I'm going to pay back if anyone comes and takes the field from you. The that if someone comes and says that this wasn't his property, if he says that if someone comes to Reuven gave it to his partner Shimon, and he said if someone comes and says that it never belonged to you, this is originally mine, I owned it. Yehuda comes and said it was mine from before. He certainly can't make an edus to say that it belongs to Shimon as opposed to the person who's coming to say it's his, because if they're going to be successful, if the Ma'ara is successful, then Reuven's going to have to make good on his achrayis. Ella achrayis the ashule machmas. Where Elamai, it's talking about he just made an achrayis that if a Baal Chayv comes to take it from him. So in that case, if he's saying an edus that when he's saying an edus on Shimon's behalf, he's saying edus that it really belongs to Shimon, meaning that there's no ma'arer coming to say that it originally belongs to him. It's not, it doesn't belong to Yehuda from beforehand. So that, like we said before, the cheshbon is that it's not going to hurt him if
it won't benefit him. You mean
it's not gonna right? It's not gonna hurt. It's not going to right. It's not gonna benefit the person who is makna, this mayid, this partner who's being made, because anyway, if it's taken away from him, he's not going to have to he won't, if it's taken away from
either way he'll also owe money.
He's going to have to pay money to, right, exactly. If it's taken away by his debtor, if he keeps it in his hand and then now it's taken away by a debtor, he's going to anyway have to pay back this debt. He's going to have a new debt to this pshutif. So therefore, he can say edus me'idin loy, and he's not an negei of edus. So that's the Gemara. The Gemara asks another question. So we're talking about where he was makna. So we have this complicated arrangement where when Ruvain is Masalik himself from Masada, he was a partner with Shimon, but he removed himself and he had to make a specific type of achraya, so he shouldn't retain a negias legabi a bal chayv coming and taking it away from him. But why don't we say that just in general, his being Masalik himself, maybe that's just it's all a knunya, it's all a strategy. He makes up, someone was asking me, he wanted to sell, he wanted to buy a used car from someone and put on his sale thing that he only paid $1 for it, even though it was really costing 22,000. He says, I'll write a check for the 22,000 and no one will know anything. So it's the same kind of thing they're trying to do over here. Maybe what they're doing is, Reuben and Shimon, obviously they're shutfin, they're friends. So Shimon says, someone coming to be ma'ara on me. So Reuben says, you know what? I'll say that I'm being masalik myself from it. I'll be makna to you the whole field. Then I could say Yadis. And then 6 months later, when no one's looking, you'll give it back to me. So that the Gemara seems to say, the chayra, that's a problem. But Tanya, and I'll prove to you that we're worried about such a type of end run around the rules of a negei be'edus saying edus. But that someone can't divest himself of an interest in order to be able to become a. But Tanya, b'nei ir shenignav sefer Torah shlem. Inhabitants of a city that their sefer Torah was stolen. The sefer Torah was normally owned b'shutvus by all the members of the township. Ein danen b'dayanei oisei ir. The dayanim of that year cannot judge on that case on the people who were accused of being the ganavim. They can't say edus from people in that city. Them isa. And if you'll say that people are allowed to divest themselves of their interests and then become dayanim or edim, lislaku beitrei minayev ladayane ladainu. One and two of the I'm not sure why we say beitrei. It should be beishloisha. You should l'chari. You need 3 people for dinei mamonos. But we're saying let a couple of those people become dayanim. And make it like we said, they'll make a din dvar mainly, and they'll be makna their share in the sefer Torah. They won't have any share. Elamai, it seems to indicate that we don't trust such a divestiture. We say that it's all a trick, and they really remain just as interested, and they'll get back their share afterwards. So tomorrow, no. The problem is a different thing. Shani sefer Torah d'l'shmayakoi. What does it help to divest yourself of your share of the sefer Torah? In the end, you're benefiting from the sefer Torah. If these ganavim get their way, they're going to take the sefer Torah away, and you're not going to have where to listen on Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos. So just saying you don't own a share of the sefer Torah, you're still benefiting from it, and therefore they're negei events. Tashma ha'emer tnu manu l'bnei iri. Someone said, give a if someone who was on his way out, he was a shchiv meirah. And he said, give a mana to the people of the town. I want to dedicate it for the town to use for their needs. You can't take dayanim or edim from that town because they're all benefiting. It's a public, he's dedicating it, he's giving the money, he's donating it for the benefit of the people of the city. They're all people of the city, and they're negeya. Let 2 of the people say, we won't take any share of that money. The Gemara says it doesn't help, even if they don't own that money. We're talking about where they're going to get a sefer Torah with the money, and therefore they're going to benefit. Tashma, someone said give money to the aniyim of that city. You can't take dayanim or edim from that city. The Gemara asks question. Why not? V'tizbar aniyim shakli dayanim mifsli. What does it make a difference? He's giving it to the aniyim. Why are the dayanim excluded from? They're not negeya going to aniyim. Ela ema ein danim b'dayane aniyei oisayir. We're saying that any dayanim who are aniyim can't become a dayan. And the aniyim can't be say avis. In fact, the Gemara of Amai l'stalku be'trein afshaya v'liyidaynu. Why don't we say that even if it's aniyim, why don't we say that they can be misalik themselves? Elamai, again, it's a raya that we don't trust people to be misalik themselves because we think it's just a temporary siluk, and then they'll jump back in afterwards and take their share. No, even though this sounds like we're talking about a totally separate thing, it sounds like we're talking about giving a donation to aniyim, we're still talking about someone gave money to buy a Sefer Torah. So why does he say, why do we say in this Lashon he's giving it to the aniyim of the year? Because everyone, the Gabi Sefer Torah is an ani, everyone needs a Sefer Torah, and you could call everyone Sefer Torah, everyone an ani when you're referring to the need of a Sefer Torah. Or if you want, this is not the most satisfactory answer. For obvious reasons, it does a little bit of violence to the lashon of the memra. So we're talking about where the donator, the benefactor, is actually giving to the aniyim of the city. But we're talking about aniyim that are supported by the good members of the Kehillah. They all donate to the Tamchui and to the different charitable that the Gabayim go, and they collect money from everyone in order to be able to support the Aniyim. If we're talking about where everyone has to give $5 a month to support the Aniyim, why do we say we have to go get a dayan from somewhere else? Let some of the people, let a couple of dayanim, give their money in advance and say, we're giving our money to Saivi. And then they could say the Yedis because they're not negay anymore. We're talking about where the township doesn't have a set amount that goes to Aniyim. Every month they figure out how much they need, and therefore there's no way for them to pay in advance. Could even be talking about where they do have a set amount. That in the end, ultimately, if there's more money for the Aniyim, it will benefit them, even though they paid their set amount. But the Rishonim talk about different things. Either they'll refund the money if there's extra money in the kupa at the end of the year. They'll give refunds to everybody, so they'll end up benefiting if this bequest goes through. So therefore, that's the reason why they can't. In this case, they're not able to be misalik themselves. But in general, one can be misalik himself. In the case of a shutav, where you don't have these considerations like we have by a Sefer Torah that they're always going to benefit, or by an aniyim that they're always going to ultimately benefit. So then, in those cases, only in those specific cases, you can't be misalik your interest. So another member that we said b'shmuel, the nasad shemishacha zelazeh. If you have two shutrim that, let's say, they own two cars b'shutvis. So one guy, Reuven and Shimon, own two cars b'shutvis. So the Gemara at this point assumes that Reuven takes care of one car in his house, and Shimon takes care of the other car in his house. Each one is considered a shayma sachar on the other person, on the shmir of the other one, because he's getting paid by the fact that his partner is watching the other piece of property for him. So they're not considered shemachinam, even though they're not getting paid cash, but they're getting paid in the benefit that the other partner is watching his share, half of the partnership. As we had back in Bava Metzia, we learned that the Torah says specifically by Yeshoel. The Rashbam brings the whole sequence that by Yeshoel, if the person who's the owner, the person who's the lender, is working for the borrower, then the borrower is no longer chayiv for einstein. And we say similarly by a Shem Esachar, even though a Shem Esachar is normally chayiv for gneva v'aveda, but if the lender, the person who lent the object, is working for the not the borrower, but the Shem Esachar, the renter, or the person who's being paid, the paid Shemer, he's not going to be chayiv for gneva v'aveda. So why are we saying that each one of these shutvin is a Shem Esachar? Since each one is in the employ of the other one, right? The same way it's a Shem Esachar, they're getting paid, they're also being employed by the other person. So therefore, as long as each one is considered the lender to the other one, and that makes them into or not a lender, but a renter or a owner, they're considered also a Shemer, that they're considered to be working for him. And each one, therefore, should negate the fact that they're getting paid to watch each other's half of the shutvas. We're talking about when they didn't divide it up. There was the two cars, and one's in each. Reuven and Shimon each get half of it to watch. We're talking about one car, and Shimon watches it one day, and then Reuven watches it the other day. So on the day that Reuven is watching it, he is only a Shem Esachar. Shimon is not employed by him because Shimon is not watching anything on that day, and vice versa. When Shimon is watching it, Reuven is not employed by him because Reuven is not watching his half. There's only one thing to watch, and they're dividing it chronologically as opposed to dividing it in half and each watching half. Tan Rabban, machali bayis, machalei sada. If someone sold Reuven, sold Shimon a house, or Reuven sold Shimon a sada, and then Yehuda comes and says, it's mine. Ein meid le'ala. Reuven cannot say edus on behalf of Shimon against Yehuda to say it's his. B'nei shachar yusayolav. The pashtus is because if Yehuda is going to be successful in taking it away from Shimon, then Shimon is going to go back to Reuven and say, you owe me money because the thing that you claimed to sell to me was not yours to sell, and I have a achrayis, I have a warranty that you have to pay up. Machale para, machale talis. If instead of being real estate, it was a cow or it was a cloak, it was metaltalin, made le'ela. In that case, the seller can be made that it belongs to the purchaser, because he has no responsibility in that case. Why are we saying that the Sada there is achrayis? They were saying the reason is because the Sada has achrayis and the metaltalin don't have achrayis. So let's say when you have achrayis, you can be made, and when you don't have achrayis, you can't. The Gemara at this point is not assuming that there's a difference that normally a Sada has achrayis and metaltalin don't, even though we are aware of it. The Gemara is not assuming that. The Gemara is asking based on the fact that we're saying the reason. So why don't we just say the reason? Why are we saying different cases? Amr of Sheshis, so Sheshis says a very complicated answer. Reisha, the Reisha is not talking about a case where Reuven sold to Shimon. We're talking about entirely different case. Reisha, but Reuven shegatel sadam Shimon. Reuven stole a field from Shimon, meaning Shimon already was said in Bezdin that Reuven stole this from him. Umachro leLevi, and then Reuven went and sold it to Levi. V'asa Yehuda become Ara, and now Yehuda is coming and says, "No, this is my field from the beginning. This whole thing, whatever, he doesn't know anything from the fact that Reuven stole it from Shimon and he sold it to Levi. He's saying, I have Edom that it was mine before any of this, and none of you have a chazaka, and it's mine." The Leilezel Shimon la'asid Leila Levi. We say what the Mishnah was saying, that what we said in the Brisa, that someone who sold a field can't be say edus. We're talking about this Shimon who had his field stolen from Reuven. He can't go. Reuven stole his field and sold it to Levi. he can't go and testify on behalf of Levi against Yehuda. The Nichale, the Hader, because he would rather, what is the Bach? The Nichale, the Tahadale, because he would rather it stays by Levi. It means he has a, like we're going to say in a minute, that he has a, he's going to be able to prove, he has already his eyes on Reuven. Reuven was the one who stole the property from him. And he says, I'm going to prove that Reuven stole it from me, and therefore his sale to Levi was invalid. So I don't want it to now to go to a third party, because then I'm not going to be able to take it from Levi. Zok the Gemara, Bekivin the Asad le the Levi hechi matzi mabak lemine. The Gemara asks, what are we talking about here? We're saying Shimon is going to testify that it belongs to Levi instead of Yehuda, and then he's going to take it away from Levi. How can he go turn around, first say, oh, it belongs to Levi, and then afterwards he's going to say, oh, by the way, Levi bought it from Reuven who stole it from me. You already testified it belongs to Levi. How can you say it belongs to Levi and then say it doesn't? You already made it. Zak Gemara, no. It's not exactly. It's not saying it belongs to Levi. The Amar Yadana Dahayara the Lav Yehudu. It's not that he's coming and saying Adis that it belongs to Levi as opposed to Yehuda. He's just coming and undermining Yehuda's raya. Yehuda's coming with Adam. It says that this belonged to me from 2 years ago, before everything started happening. And I'm the Marakam. And I have Adam for it. And Shimon is coming and saying, these Adam, this Adis is false Adis. Imano Yisim Chicago on the day that you said that they're testifying, or he could testify that Yehuda was maida to him, that it's not his, that it was not true. But now, when he's going to come to Levi, he's going to bring his own Adam to undermine Levi's taina by saying that Reuven stole it from him. Zot Gemara, how is Shimon going to win against Levi? He's going to bring a raya that it belonged to him originally. Shimon's going to prove that Reuven stole it from him. He's going to bring Adam that it belonged to him. So why is he considered a geya be'edus to keep by Levi as opposed to by Yehuda? But who's chusa to come up with Levi lifkam Yehuda? If he's trying to keep it from Yehuda, he doesn't really have an agiyas because he has his own Adam. So Mamar Shach, let him bring his Adam the same way they're going to win against Levi, let them win against Yehuda. So what does he care? Sagt the Gemara, the Amar Sheni Layach Liarishin Kasha Yemenu. No, that's still an Agias, because maybe Shimon would prefer to deal with Levi as opposed to dealing with Yehuda. So he's saying the Edis, he's an Agaya Be'edis, in that he'd prefer to take the easier Baldin. It's very interesting. My daughter ran into a whole problem with a guy who is he's squatting on her house. She bought a house 2 years ago, and the guy she made a deal that he could live in it for 2 years, up to 2 years, and the 2 years came up, and he said, I couldn't find anything. I'm staying here. And she entered eviction proceedings. She spoke to a lawyer, and she said, everyone is very tough, and it's very hard to get them out, up to the point where they get a lawyer. Once they have to show up in court, then they all fold. And Kachava, that's Taka what happened. It's the same thing. He knows that Yehuda is a lawyer. Yehuda is going to fight to death. He'll extend the thing out for 5 years. And Levi is a temple. He's an easy guy. He's just going to fold as soon as he gets the first summons. Another possibility. What are we saying? We're saying Reuven has Adam that the property belongs to him originally. And Yehuda also has Adam that it belongs to him. So the problem is, if Yehuda will win in his suit to take the property from Levi, so now the land Yehuda will be a muhsik on the land. When Shimon will bring his Adam to say that he owned it originally, he's going to be trying to take it away from Yehuda. He'll be unsuccessful. But if it remains by Levi, if he's able to undermine, he says Yehuda's Aiden are invalid. They were with me in Chicago at the time that they claimed to testify. So it will remain by Levi. Levi has no Aiden. Levi is just saying, oh, I bought it from Reuven, I have a star. And Reuven has no Aiden because he doesn't have Aiden. Now Shimon will be able to take it away from Levi because he'll be able to prove that it was originally his. He'll have Adim. They will be able to take it from Levi. He can take it away from. But if Yehuda's Adim were treated as valid and Shimon couldn't undermine them, then Yehuda will become the mufsik. He wouldn't be able to take it away from. Okay, we'll stop over here, but we're going to continue with this explanation of why it is that with the weiter about this explanation of this member of that shutbin. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.